We're so excited to be here. We actually are going to start a new series today, and it's a series that's actually going to be a type of series that we're going to be doing not just today, but in the future as well, and we're calling it Conversations. You know, one of the things that I will tell you is that if you've been through one of our Reboot courses and you've seen me on a video, there's probably nothing that I enjoy less than having to watch a video of only me talking. And so I thought, what a cool way we could bring in some other people who are experts in their unique area, in their lane, and we could have a conversation. And if you've been through any of our Reboot courses, you know that identity is something that we spend a lot of time talking about. We talk about it in each of our 3 programs, and specifically we believe that we say a person who doesn't know who they are will never become who they can be. And so we say it's important to know who you are. But the truth is that we really barely get to scratch the surface on this conversation of understanding how we're made. And it's not an area that I spend a lot of time reading about or studying about. Almost all of my time is spent talking about trauma, which is really kind of the opposite of understanding how you're made. It's understanding what wounded you and maybe made you the way you are today. So it's kind of the flip side of maybe the same coin. And so we had a conversation internally trying to understand who would be a good person to talk to about this. And we had about a 1-second conversation, and we said, we need to call Dr. Chip Dodd and see if he would be willing to join us. And he's been such a supporter of Reboot, such a cheerleader of me from the sidelines and of Jenny. He spoke at some of our conferences before. He is not only just an amazing guy, an amazing man of faith, but he's also a best-selling author. Many of you might have heard of a book called The Voice of the Heart. He has other books, The Perfect Loss, The Boy and the Ogre, is that the right name?
Boy and the Ogre.
The Boy and the Ogre.
Needs of the Heart. It's all heart, right?
Needs of the heart, lots of heart language. And I love his personal mission statement. Why don't you say it for us? What is that personal?
Is spending my life helping people see who they're made to be so they can do what they're made to do.
That's it.
Kind of like what you said.
Yeah. See who they're made to be so they can do what they're made to do. So if you are a person, you say, you know what, I want to do what I was made to do. I want to understand more about myself. Then I want you to stick around for every single part of this series, because this is going to be something for you. This is going to be a great series. As we're having a conversation, here's what I want to invite you to do. Make sure that you have some place to take some notes. Make sure you have some place, because there's going to be some quotables, there's going to be some nuggets in here that I know you're going to want to write down, because you're going to want to learn from these. And so today I thought it'd be a good place to start. First off, thanks for being here and doing this. I thought the best place to start might actually be talking about something that we spend an enormous amount of time talking about we talk a lot about the value of community and human connection. Mm-hmm. And the people who are involved in our courses, our programs, our systems, whatever it is, most of the time, it's not the content that draws them, it's the connection, it's the community. Mm-hmm. And you talk a lot about the importance of connection, human connection. And so I want to give you wide berth with this first question and just tell us why as we're talking about the subject of identity, why is connection such an important aspect?
Yeah, you know, I was just thinking how dangerous it is to give me wide berth.
Yeah, here we go. It's going to be a 60-minute interview, so we better get started.
I'll be nice and concise. But something you said that really to frame, in some ways, everything we're talking about, is that trauma is a disruption. And it's just a disruption that pulls us away from our origins, how we're really made. And which leads us to really the understanding that neuroscience now have confirmed what has been biblically true and anciently true, like forever and ever.
Really?
Is that neuroscientists are saying that you literally come out of the womb looking for who's looking for you. In other words, you are a relationship-seeking creature, and you only find fulfillment through it. And so I wrote a book called The Voice of the Heart that's been out for actually quite some time. And the major premise before neuroscientists began to say this, I'm saying the ancient words that you and I are created as emotional and spiritual creatures, created to seek full life.
Wow.
But we only find it in relationship.
Yeah.
Relationship with ourselves, head and heart connected, relationship with others, and relationship with God. And out of that, we end up expressing all that we're made to do. But first, it's relationship connected. And what's amazing is just think about the word connection. There's a thing called encouragement. And encouragement comes from someone giving me something that helped me move from discouragement to be encouraged again.
Interesting.
And courage means that it means full-hearted participation. And if you pour yourself out into life taking risks, then you're going to wind up being empty at the end of the day or end of the week. And you need someone to help fill your bucket or fill the courage. A word, pat on the back, a statement of, I'll be with you, I've got your six.
Yep.
Something happens inside us that changes us, that encourages us. It fills the heart up to have energy to keep going, or willingness to take a risk, or the energy to take the next step. And it happened without a drug. It happened without a syringe.
Right.
It happened without a food.
Yep.
It happened without some type of experience that did something to me hormonally. It was just a word,
Right.
a movement. And so that speaks to our hunger for connection, that we're literally created to find fulfillment through relational connection. It's the food of life.
Wow.
In so many ways.
And so what I hear you saying too, though, is that is knitted into us.
Yep.
Really from the beginning.
From the very beginning. There's a thing that an obstetrician, her last name is Apgar, A-P-G-A-R.
Okay.
And out of that, they created an acronym that assesses the well-being and the capacity to thrive in a young infant. And by doctors, midwives and so on, assessing where that child was according to the Apgar, it increased infancy survival rate by leaps and bounds during this first moments when they came out of the womb. And here's the thing they're checking, which is fascinating. They're checking their ability to connect. Now,
Really?
they do it this way. Will the child cry out? This is number one thing. Will the child cry out? Now remember, when a child is born, an infant's born, they're not thinking.
Right.
They're not talking.
Right.
What's going on inside the skull is nothing. It's like oatmeal. Nothing's happening. It's just hanging there, right? But the heart is doing what it's made to do. It's literally like an infant is a plug looking for an outlet.
Wow.
And so will the child cry out? It's number one thing they check, which means will the child begin to, quote, speak, unquote, the feelings? Will the child acknowledge fear? Will the child acknowledge loneliness? I'm hungry to move towards who I'm being to be connected to. Will the child acknowledge I've lost where I am and don't want to go back, but I'm still not where I'm made to be, which is like sadness. It hurts to be in that kind of pain of hunger. Also, will the child desire? Will the child move with their wishing, hoping, anger to join with where I'm made to be joined?
Wow.
And so this is an expression of feelings.
Wow.
And then will the child reach out? Will the child extend itself towards what it's made to connect to? And what's amazing is
Incredible.
a little baby will say, that's not it. Out of the womb, they can't think. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. That's it.
And then they grab
Human
the hand.
connection of another human being. And then they assess, will the child feel, will the child need, and then will the child crave, which is fascinating because we're made to crave connection.
Interesting.
And what's amazing is when the child connects with the caregiver, what's amazing is that's where the plug hits the outlet. And what happens in this little infant, the heart rate, it gets established at a certain pulse, skin tone, color changes, pulmonary functions begin, the respiration regulates, and little bitty sparkles start to go up into that mush pot and kind of turn on this brain that will become language sooner or later. But the child is speaking language before they can say a word or think a word. And they're speaking the language of relationship connection. And what's amazing is craving, the infant craves the connection with human touch
Wow.
and holding and nurturing more than the food we think we value more than touch. The child will bond with the skin and the holding of the mother before they'll ever seek the stomach for the food. It's reaching for the food of the heart before they'll reach for food for the stomach. And that to me is the point. We're created to thrive through relationship and survive through food. Food won't make us thrive. Relationship will give us thriving. And as we talk farther, trauma is what makes us go away from how we're made.
Yep.
Because it hurts so badly to be that vulnerable, how we're made.
I was going to ask, let me just go to this idea of connection. If we're made to this, what happens to people who don't experience that connection early on in life? Or do we find it elsewhere?
Well, the thing is, because you're made to seek life and life to the full, everything that has DNA, everything that's animated, from wolves to geranium leaves to slugs to porpoises and people, everything that has DNA is seeking fulfillment.
Okay.
And so if you're not touched by relationship, you literally experience this sense of loss, wandering. You have what's called emotional orphanhood. And what that does, that ends up translating into, there must be something wrong with me.
Interesting.
Which is fascinating, isn't it? Because what I was made to get didn't happen. And instead of it being a failure outside of me, I'm experiencing it as perhaps a failure inside of me. And that's where we get this understanding of toxic shame. And so if I don't get to be fully in relationship, I translate it into something being wrong with me. And what's amazing is that turns into, I need to hide how I'm made.
Yeah.
Okay? And so we'll develop a false self to get our needs met, rather than being our real selves to get our needs met. But either way, the needs drive you. The need to belong, the need to matter, the need to grieve, the need to be touched, the need to be listened to, the need to trust. I mean, I wrote a book called Needs of the Heart. And if you have nowhere to take the needs, then you'll seek out something counterfeit. Oh, I'll get my needs met by being the smartest person in the room, the toughest person in the room, the most accomplished, the most athletic.
Wow.
Because my performance is going to start mattering more than how God made me.
You know, I want to do something interesting. If you're listening, I want you to think for a second about the first point of connection that you actually consciously remember, which won't be when you were a baby, even if you've seen a picture of it or something. I want you to think about, what was the earliest point of connection that you can remember with another person? Maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a grandparent, maybe it was a sibling. And I think it'd be interesting for you just to have a moment to reflect on how early in life you started valuing and craving that connection, and what your first point of connection might be. You know, I think for me about some of my earliest points of connection, and how for me those were moments that I look back on fondly. You know, I think about the good that came from that. But I'm sure for some people, the moments of connection they thought about might not have been good memories. They might not have been happy memories. I want to take a second. I want to read a verse that I know you teach about and talk about a lot, which is Matthew chapter 7. So this is in the New Testament. It's actually the first gospel. So it's going to be, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through your Bible, something like that. It's in the book of Matthew, and it's verses 7 and 8 that's found in chapter 7. It says this, it says, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, everyone who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be open. Is there a man among you who will give his son a stone if he asks for bread? If he asks for fish, will he give him a snake?" And it goes on and on from there. But this is obviously something that's been put into songs. A lot of us know this verse. And I've heard you talk about the connection, no pun intended, of this verse to the topic of connection.
Yes.
How are they related?
To me, sometimes it's hard for me to fathom the depth and the breadth of that one little sentence, because it's saying, as you were born, so shall you remain, and as you were born, you're created to grow up as you were created. This Apgar thing, which is cry out, reach out, and take in, crave, it's almost like Jesus is saying, you know, when you grow up, you don't leave behind how I made you, but now you're able to talk.
Wow.
Now you're able to think. So use your mind to express what's actually happening in your heart.
Wow.
So he's saying now that the heart no longer just cries out, use this cry out feelings to ask for what you need. Use this reach out to seek what you're made to find. And use the craving for life to knock.
Wow.
So the door will be open unto you, and you can receive that which you're made to have, a meal, a communion, a fellowship, a shelter, care. And so it's astounding, but it also points to trauma. That passage also says, what though you are evil, how many of you, if you asked for bread, would get a stone? And there are many in your audience that says, I have gotten a stone.
Right.
But see, that's made to bring us to weeping, rather than bring us to a vow against how we're made. Because it says that all the law and the prophets are about this one thing, that we are to do unto others as we'd have them do unto us. We need people to ask us, and we need to ask people. Wow. So we can receive what we're made to have, which is called fulfillment through fellowship. Wow. Or a sense of confidence through communion.
Yeah.
You know, it goes like that.
Beautiful.
And trauma recovery is so often about having no place to go when it was time to ask, seek, and knock. When I had feelings and I had needs and I had cravings, I was alone in the midst of that. And so it's a huge risk to walk through the wall of trauma. because trauma actually crazily protects me
Right.
from the vulnerability of hoping again like I was born to do.
Right.
And it's a very difficult process, but worth every second once we get over the wall, can ask, seek, and knock. And one last thing, we do tragically live in a society that has contempt towards asking,
Yeah.
seeking, and knocking too. So
That's good.
guys, I mean, trauma will be confirmed by other people who are running from themselves.
Right.
And we wind up feeling like we're in a minority by being human.
Right.
But Jesus calls us to come back to how we're made.
Come back. Yeah. And I think, I love what you said. Some of us, it says, who would get a stone if they asked for bread? And you say, well, some people got a stone.
Yep.
Some people said, mom, dad, uncle, whoever, love me in this way, treat me with a certain level of dignity and respect, and they didn't receive that. Or maybe they had it later in life. They were in a relationship where it was psychologically or physically abusive. And so I want to take another pause here, and I want to give you a chance to think about, I love what you said earlier, this idea that if we don't get that connection, we actually create a false identity that we believe that aspect of ourselves or that attribute or that skill we bring, maybe that'll be enough to go get the connection. And I just want to give a second. If you've experienced a time in your life where you felt like you've been given a stone when you asked for bread, I want you to think about, is there a false sense of self or a false self that you created to go out and try to seek that? And I want you to kind of search your own heart. I know this is a deep question, but say, where have I been looking for this connection that may not be truly who I am, but I've been trying to be this thing or this person to hopefully get that? And then ask yourself, what was the stone that I received that maybe was the trigger point or the start of the creation of that other self? One of the things as we kind of start landing the plane for this conversation that I've loved is, I talk a fair amount about emotions, and obviously you talk about that we're made to be emotional creatures, that we're created to be emotional creatures, that actually what we're looking for in connection is not necessarily food, physical, but we're actually craving the emotional. And you actually outlined something that I think is pretty illuminating, that there's actually 8 emotions.
Yeah.
And when we've talked about this, some of the people here are thinking, well, wait a minute, I did week 5 in the trauma reboot curriculum, and I remember this full page of emotions you asked me to circle. And I want to say maybe now publicly, maybe I was wrong. Maybe there's only 8 emotions. I could have simplified that. Tell us, what are these 8 emotions and why is that important to us?
Yeah, and I've run into this a lot, but we have hurt, sadness, loneliness, fear, guilt, shame, and gladness. I think that covers all of them. But the 8 feelings are like the 3 primary colors, the red, yellow, and blue. And out of those 3 colors, you get the list that you give to everyone who's part of Reboot. But it still boils down or synthesized down to 8 core feelings, which really simplifies our ability to find, face, and feel how we're made. And feelings aren't badnesses, even though 7 of them sound negative. God has given us 8 tools.
Right, because gladness is the only happy one.
That's what we think at first, really. But see, we've been given 8 tools that allow us to live fully in a tragic place. And I'll be very quick, but fear is a feeling that God gave us to express our recognition of being in danger. And out of our recognition, we can cry out for help. Hurt is a feeling that tells us we've been wounded and we're in need of healing. Loneliness is a feeling that tells me I'm made for relationship. I'm lonely for me, others, and God. And then sadness is the feeling that says I value life and it's been broken. And now grief is the result. Because if I'm created for connection, created for attachment, when I don't have connection and I don't have attachment, I have sadness, or I will slip away from facing how I'm made. And the rejection of grief will become the isolation that will take me away from everything I'm made to have, everything I'm made to connect to, and I will end up finding a relationship with despair. That's very tragic.
Wow. I think these 8 emotions, I love how you said when you said it, when we can distill down how we're feeling as a result of some of these stones that we've received when we thought we were getting bread, that allows you to find, what did you say, find,
face, and feel.
Find, face, and feel. And so I just want to encourage you. I mean, I don't know where you're at in your journey post-reboot, but I do know this, is that one of the reasons you're here, one of the reasons you're listening, that you're with us right now, is because you are still on the journey of finding, facing, and feeling. And I want to just encourage you with that. And I say this in Trauma Reboot, and I want to reiterate it. I think it's in our military program as well, which is the mission that Dr. Dodd and myself both have. We know the true you is still in there, and we're not going to rest until we help you discover them. And the first thing you have to do is simply find, face, and feel. And you're doing that. So I hope you'll join us. This is our first of several conversations we're going to have on the subject of identity, understanding how we're made so we can become who we are meant to be. We will see you next time.